YouTube, welcome to a brand new morning analysis and outlook where we'll be focusing on GU primarily, and we might have a look at some other pairs depending on the time, maybe some AU or gold, or we'll have a look. But for now, we're going to start off on GU. We're going to look at the daily, and we're going to start off and see what is it that we can potentially see, what's the potential trade setups that we can potentially take, and then just take it from there. Nothing too exciting, so let's see how it goes and what happens. So usually I start off on the daily. For those that are new, I'm going to do a top-down analysis, and I'm showing you the views that I have and how I analyze and how I get my daily bias, if it is clear to see a daily bias. So let's take it from there. So first of all, I'm just noting that yesterday we had a really nice trade below the previous daily low, and then we trade all the way back up, created a high, and then we came down and we closed in this indecisional candle. Following day, which is today, already traded lower, created a wick, traded inside this wick, and now we're seeing the push towards the upside. So currently a liquidity objective for me would be yesterday's high. That's the cleanest, clearest, most obvious area that I think price could be trading to. And then we have all of this empty space, so this imbalance over here, and then the order block, the bottom of the daily order block right there. So I think for me personally, I would say that these two areas, this one and this one, they are liquidity objectives. If we are bullish, we'll be looking for price to go higher into one of those areas. But if we're bearish, then yesterday's low, or just filling off this wick if we are to continue bearish. So we have both views, so have liquidity objectives towards the upside as well as the downside in terms of yesterday's low. It does seem that we're already kind of heading towards the upside just by looking at the daily candle. So I'm not going to be biased towards the direction just based on where the candle is right now. Anything can still happen. This can run up just close to this area and then just drop all the way down, leaving behind a massive wick. So we don't know what's going to happen. But what we do know is that the price will be reaching for liquidity objectives, and that is the main takeaway from the daily. So now that I have the daily levels, I'll be looking for long ideas aligning to reach these areas, and then if long ideas fail, we'll be looking for short ideas to go lower. So we're always keeping our head open for both sides, especially when something like this happens, where it's not exactly clear because we have this slowdown, we have been pushing down for some time, so we could see some bullishness come in as a reversal, or just a retracement, not necessarily a reversal. Days like these where you have a big push down, there's nothing else that can happen usually than just another continuation down lower. So these days are just a flush, bearish flush. Okay, so now from the daily, you're dropping down to the 1 hour. Now I have those same areas on the charts marked, which is going to clean it up a bit and just move it towards the edges. This is where we swept previous daily low. Excuse Nola, she is seeing a cat or something. And this up here is that daily order block. So what we can just say daily order block. We can just keep it like that. So now we know that potentially we can see price reaching for this area and that area, or we could be coming down towards the downside. I'm more prone towards upside price, primarily because I potentially see this as a structure break towards the upside, price coming down. Then in this push towards the downside, price folds the range into the discount on the 1 hour, and then we see the push towards the upside. So currently we're still, I think, in this range. Let's get the ranges. So we're still in this range. No, that's the wrong one. But well, you can see from this low and this high, we're still in this range. So I'm looking where's the sell side liquidity, because in my mind, whenever we are bullish, we must first sweep sell side liquidity. So that is a little bit of a nugget there. So this is the cleanest 1H sell side liquidity. So this could be something. We could see a move like that. Or if we look towards the upside and we want to see sells, then potentially this could be something. and then up, or just continuation down. So I'm looking for where is the nearest drawn liquidity and for price to reach into that area and then give a reaction. So that's basically what I'm looking for. Now I'm seeing the sell side liquidity below this low and then the buy side liquidity above this high marked up over here. So we could just add some text here as well. Buy side liquidity at the top and put at the right, just make it bold. Left. So we have our buy side liquidity above this high that we could potentially be reaching for. We can see kind of price is intent on going higher. But then now, this is the extreme sell side liquidity, which is nice about this level is that it also swept liquidity below this low and then started rallying towards the upside. So this whole candle becomes an important zone for me, which we'll have a look at now. Like this. Zones. That's a zone. Sorry, I deleted the wrong one. So we have this zone where we could potentially see a reaction. So we could see something like this as well. So now I'll be looking at the 15-minute and see if the 15-minute aligns with any of the ideas that I had coming from the daily. So the 15-minute, I would then potentially use all of those candles as the range that swept the liquidity. So that's kind of the zone that I'm looking at. It's the buy zone. The buy zone, because it was the sell off before price went up higher. Now looking at liquidity now, the 15-minute liquidity, I'll just mark up something like this. So we have this low as a liquidity low, and then you can also see we have some imbalance in there as well. So the idea would then be to see potentially price drop and go higher. So looking for that drop into this area. And then obviously on the 1 minute, we would want to see a reaction, a 1 minute reaction and a 1 minute entry. For example, yesterday's trade, we traded below the previous day low. This line is the previous day low. Then we reacted towards the upside, and you can see there's a lot of things happened, and then we came back towards the 5 minutes as a buy zone, and then the trade went towards the upside, breaking the structure, which gave us the idea for the long today. But if price is just rallying towards the upside and there's no pullback, then potentially there won't be a long trade for me, a long setup. Price coming down below this area for me is a signal that there's a potential setup. That's potentially a trigger for me to then potentially have a setup to trade off of. But if we don't see that push towards the downside and sweeping of the sell side liquidity, then maybe there's nothing yet to look at. So currently this is how I'm framing it. We have this short-term high that has been broken, but ultimately we have this high here as well now. So we could see this as well. We have first a grab on liquidity above this high, and then a drop down, and then a push higher. So that's also a scenario that we could be looking at. But ultimately, I'd be looking to see the reaction as soon as price gets into this area. So I'll be setting an alert and just patiently wait to see if price makes a drop down into this area. If it doesn't, then potentially there's no trade, potentially. But remember, I have to continue with my higher time frame bias. If my higher time frame bias is more towards bullishness, I have to be looking for longs, because then that's for me is pro trend trades. Anything counter to that is then obviously counter trend trades. So the idea is to stick with pro trend trades. But if the counter trend trades really sets up clearly, you can clearly identify the liquidity, then obviously you can take a counter trend trade. So for example, if we see a sweep of this high and we see a strong reaction towards the downside, breaking the structure, we can look to see for a pullback and then a continuation down lower. We need to be, first of all, be aware of the order flow. So currently, I believe this high should be broken, and then we could potentially see a drop down lower, and then a continuation up higher. So that's probably my number one scenario right now. Just taking note of this area of supply here as well. we could definitely see a reaction off of this area, maybe a reaction pullback, and then a continuation further up. That is to say, if the long bias is going to hold, and we are going to reach for the daily order block, which we don't necessarily know for sure that that is going to happen, but it's the idea. So we'll see if the idea plays out. In terms of entries in this area, if price reaches this area, you could always take an aggressive. It also depends on what time. If it reaches this area around session opening, it's a good probability. Potential aggressive entry would be a tap of this area and then a move higher. But the risk reward isn't as great. It's like 14 pips risk. So for me personally, I would rather wait for the reaction in this area and then looking for a entry pattern, and then be able to reduce my stop loss to at least 5 pips, 5 or 6 pips. 5 is ideal for me, and then still aim for that high, because you can see the ranges has really increased in terms of pip sizes for GU. So there's a lot more pips to be made. Obviously, then your stop loss is usually a little bit bigger as well because of the candles. The highs and lows are a bit bigger, so you have to place your entry a bit differently, stop loss a bit differently. So currently, that is the view that I have for this morning. Got nothing much more to say in terms of analysis. I have areas where I want to be buying from. We could see a sell of, remember, from the 1 hour a break of this level and then a continuation higher, and for that we'll be looking at the price action in this area. So let's quickly just jump to the 5 minute and just observe what's happening here. I don't really want to go lower than the 5 minute. So just quickly compare notes here. You see there's no impulsive move down and impulsive move back up in this area, where in this case we had an impulsive move down and then an impulsive move back up. You can just look and see these candles, how strongly they're pushing up, and these candles, how strongly they're pushing down and pushing up again. So that for me signifies a valid buy area, just because of the behavior of price action in this price range between 34,120 and 38,180, and at price levels. So in this case, there's nothing as significant personally, but obviously we could still see a reaction. But again, definitely looking for a confirmation reaction over here. But I think this low, the short-term low, would be best to be taken out. Taking out this low and then a continuation up higher, filling this imbalance, and potentially tapping into this 5 minutes block buy zone, especially because this 5 minute candle also broke. They're the same thing, so you have the liquidity below that low. So if you look at the 1 minute now, at that area, you can see we had this consolidation. These 3 candles swept all the liquidity below this consolidation, tapped into this order block, and then we see the continuation up high. So this candle for me is then a valid buy area. So I'll potentially just put this over there and then call this a refined area for buys. So on the 5 minute, that could be a nice buy area, and if you take an aggressive entry, 50% of that area, just about 50%, make sure you have 5 pips, and then targeting the highs, something like this. So that is my trade idea, guys. That's what I'm looking at. That's how I'll be approaching the markets today. Be patiently waiting for something to align with this. Let me know down in the comments if you agree, if you disagree. What's your view? Please, I would love to know. Trading is so different for everyone, and there's so many ways you can view it, and no one's necessarily right and no one's necessarily wrong. So I would be curious to know what's your view, what's your opinion. Let me know, and thank you for watching, and I'll see you guys in the next one. Have a great day. Bye.